MOUs and going through the motions. The nays will have it. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Liberals are a no, and that will be just fine for the Conservatives. Today, the official opposition Conservatives plan to get every Liberal MP on the record with a motion about their true support for a pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia. Most of the language in the motion is borrowed right from the recent MOU, signed by Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Danielle Smith. But the Liberals are going to vote no anyway. Corey Hogan is the only Liberal MP from the Calgary area and one of only two Liberal MPs in the entire province of Alberta. On social media, Hogan explained why he's going to be voting against this Conservative motion.
Out of a big and comprehensive MOU between the governments of Canada and Alberta, it picks one clause and one possible route, the one that requires revising a tanker ban, and enforces a vote on it. And we got to be clear. We all know exactly why the Conservatives moved this motion. It is not to make a pipeline built. They are hoping to score cheap political points by upsetting a delicate balance. They want us to vote on one side of the ledger. They want us to vote on one possible interpretation, and that the country will suffer is of no interest or concern to them. If we vote yes, it can be interpreted we are betraying our duty to consult First Nations, that we're not consulting with the province of BC. If we vote no, it can be interpreted to businesses in the province of Alberta that we're not serious about a pipeline. So either option could reduce the chances of the pipeline actually being built. Now, Pierre Poilievre knows this. If he didn't, it would show a disqualifying level of incompetence for somebody who wishes to be prime minister in such times. This is an unserious stunt that tries to score points at the expense of our nation and our nation's economy. And it just underlines how not ready for leadership he is.
Conservative MPs are jumping all over those comments, with Pierre Poilievre accusing Hogan of betraying Calgary's most important industry and calling him part of the keep it in the ground wing of the Liberal Party. Michelle Rempel-Garner, who is also a Conservative MP from the Calgary area, said Hogan uses a lot of fancy words to say he's opposed to a pipeline. When cornered by the press gallery on Parliament Hill, Hogan called the Conservative motion silly.
You don't want to get ahead of it, and we've seen pipelines go down when people try to get ahead of these things. When you look at the court challenge that knocked out the Northern Gateway pipeline in 2015, what ended up happening there is people were too overly enthusiastic about a pipeline, and then the court said, no, you did not perform your duty properly.
Are you expecting your party to vote as a bloc altogether on this? Will it be a whipped vote?
I haven't had any conversations to that effect, but I think that, I look forward to seeing what my colleagues have to say about it, but we all know what's going on here. Like, we're not confused about what they're trying to do here, but it's silly. It's not what the country needs at this moment. What this country needs is serious leaders acting in a serious fashion, not playing games that jeopardize the economic future of this country.
In the House of Commons, Mr. Poilievre has been laying the groundwork for today's debate, noting the Liberal government's history on blocking pipelines, leading to this exchange with Tim Hodgson, the Minister of Natural Resources.
If they want to combat their own cost of living crisis, the Liberals would focus on approving pipelines that would sell more oil, boost our Canadian dollar so Canadians could buy affordable food and homes. In fact, there was such a pipeline, the Northern Gateway. Liberals killed it in a 2016 cabinet decision, a decision the Prime Minister supported. They further blocked it with a Liberal ban on tanker traffic off the northwest BC coast. The Prime Minister claims to have changed his mind in a recent MOU. So will he be able to change the minds of fellow Liberals and vote for his own MOU and allow a pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's a sad day because the Conservatives are divided. The Conservative premiers across this country support this MOU in its entirety. The Leader of the Opposition is seeking to divide this country, and we can see through that cynical tactic. The MOU is about building a strong country. It's about doing it in an environmentally responsible way in partnership with Indigenous peoples. It would be great if the opposition joined all the other Conservatives and all of us in building this country strong.
Poilievre claims it's the Liberals who are dividing Canadians by saying different things in different parts of the country.
Speaker, I think the only division here is that the Prime Minister is divided against himself. The Prime Minister opposed the pipeline to the Pacific. Now he claims he supports it. He supported the tanker ban. Now he claims he opposed it. Mr. Speaker, this is the Prime Minister who said he wanted to keep half of our oil in the ground, and now he pretends to have changed his mind. He signed an MOU. He says one thing in BC, the opposite in Alberta, and here in the House of Commons he hides under his desk. Why would the Prime Minister stand up, take a position, and announce that he's voting in favor of his MOU language to build a pipeline?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, the Premier of Alberta supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Saskatchewan supports the entire MOU. The Premier of Ontario supports the entire MOU. It would be great if the Conservatives would join us in supporting the entire MOU and building this country strong.
Action in the House of Commons is already underway, and MPs are already debating the Conservative motion. Voting on that motion isn't expected to wrap up until sometime this evening. Whatever the outcome, yay or nay, it's going to be a nay, but it's just a motion. So it's not binding on the government, but another issue could soon trump the pipeline anyway, and that's fertilizer. U.S. President Donald Trump is saying he might hit Canada with severe tariffs on Canadian fertilizer exports to the U.S., in a bid to increase American production of fertilizer.
A lot of it does come in from Canada, and so we'll end up putting very severe tariffs on that if we have to, because that's the way you want to bolster here, and we can do it here. We can all do that here, but I would say what you do, you put very severe tariffs on from coming into other countries, you'll be making your own fertilizer very soon.
That's a direct threat to Canada's potash industry. According to the Canadian government, Canada leads the world in potash exports, and almost half of potash exports go to the United States. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
He's with us every week to talk about some of the big issues in the country and around the world. Kind of a global view today with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. And welcome back.
Good afternoon, Rob. And yes, thank you.
There is a new national security strategy from the Trump administration, and you think it's a big deal and something Canadians will want to know more about. What do you think it means for Canada?
I do think it's a big deal. I just want to put this as the backdrop. When he was first elected, and I did media interviews, and of course I spoke to you, I argue, and then I did that op-ed in the National Post about Stephen Marin, the economic philosophy of the new Trump administration, and I said, I think because there are all kinds of people in Canada, pundits and premiers saying they didn't know what he wanted. They said Trump probably doesn't even know what Trump wants, and I was just mystified by all this incredible confusion because it's absolutely crystal clear what Trump has wanted. And it was captured in his four-letter acronym, MAGA, Make America Great Again. And I'm not trying to endorse it. I'm just simply saying that's not people say, it's just a slogan. It's not a slogan. He wants to make America bigger. And I actually said at the time, I said the hegemon, to use the academic term for a superpower, the hegemon, I said the hegemon wants to become more hegemonic. So that was sort of academic sly humor, if you know what I mean. So what I was saying is the U.S. wants to get bigger. And there's all kinds of leaders and pundits that are just deeply confused, and they don't understand that Trump wants to make America bigger and stronger. Let me be more blunt. Instead of being a $32 trillion economy, he wants the U.S. to become, a $40 trillion or a $50 trillion. And it's about America first. It's not about who's our friends and who's our enemies. And he is saying they're going to look at everything through the lens, every policy, every country relationship from the point of view, what policies will make our country stronger, even if it makes the other country weaker. So this document that was just released 3 days ago, Friday, formalizes and spells out in a formal written foreign policy document, which makes it much more official, if you will, than just tweets on a weekend from Trump. He's formalized, or his people have formalized the policy, and it is crystal clear. It's about America. They're going to pursue their own self-interest, and they especially said they're going to focus on the Western Hemisphere, meaning North America and Central America, South America. So what he's doing is he's updating the Monroe Doctrine of former James Monroe, a president in 1820, who announced the Monroe Doctrine, that he said in the immediate backyard of the United States, meaning, Cuba and Venezuela and, countries in Central and Latin America, the U.S. would not tolerate any outside interference from countries in Europe or Asia. And so what he's done is he's updated that to make it, he's very clear, he's updating it not just to be countries of Latin America, but also the North, and that's us. We're the North, remember? Right. And it's the Arctic and they're not worried about, for anybody who says, oh, he's worried about Canada invading the United States or something. No. They actually make it very clear. They're worried about China using the Northwest Passage through our Arctic area to cause risk and damage to North America, to the United States. So he's saying we will not tolerate that. So what they're doing is asserting some kind of, I won't say sovereignty, but some kind of authority to intervene in the Canadian high north, the Canadian Arctic. And they also said we will not allow any foreign interests around the world, and they're talking about China, by the way, to do something in North America that will hurt the U.S. And they're talking, I think, about
because we're tight on time. What I want to get at, you've outlined it very well. What I want to get at is, this comes out Thursday. By now, somebody in the Prime Minister's office has read it. I'm sure somebody in the in the global affairs headquarters in Ottawa has given this a good look over. I mean, what should we be thinking here in this country at those sorts of levels then?
I've been talking about this since literally January, and here's what my point is, and I think that Carney is going down this road. The idea that we can retaliate against the United States is just delusional. That means Premier Ford. We're going to punch them in the nose and all that stuff. We cannot compete head-to-head with the United States. They're $32 trillion. We're $2 trillion and a bit. We are the little tiny mouse. They're the 10-ton elephant. What it means concretely is that we're going to have to craft a new policy where we do not engage or try to engage in head-to-head competition with the United States. That means, let me make this clear, everybody, goodbye Canadian auto manufacturing industry, because he's already said, you're not going to export your cars to us. They're afraid anymore. So that's it. Get over it. Suck it up, babe. And so we've got to carve out, and there are lots of areas where we are not competing. They desperately need critical minerals because they don't have any. They can't make America great in critical minerals in the U.S. because they don't have any. So we should be looking at natural resources because there's lots of resources. Yes, they have resources, but there's lots of resources they don't have. So it seems to me pretty clear that we've got to move down that road and pivot and restructure and reorganize, which I think Carney is doing, to become an energy superpower, because the United States, all big countries, need energy, and we've got tons of it.
Sure.
So I think that this is going to be a radical change for our country, although Debo hasn't heard the message yet.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about energy policy next. They're debating this conservative motion in the House of Commons right now about the oil pipeline from Alberta to BC. Meantime, major report out on LNG today. So that's coming up next with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
I want to get to the MOU. Because that is what's before the House, and the Conservatives have stood up all day today talking about the fact that, the government should vote for the MOU that was put in place. And had the MOU been put in its entirety before this place, yes, the government would be voting in support of that, Madam Speaker. And it was a bit cute by half to see the Leader of the Official Opposition move an amendment today to try to add a few more tidbits of the MOU, not the whole MOU, but the parts that his party could support. But my God, Madam Speaker, they would never put that entirely. So that's happening in the House of
Commons right now. That's Nova Scotia Liberal MP Cody Blois speaking on the conservative motion about an oil pipeline from Alberta to BC. It was all designed to divide the Liberal caucus, but the Liberals came out last night and said we're going to vote against it. They had a big news conference this morning explaining why, but most of the language comes right from the federal government's own MOU with Alberta. We also had a major report today about LNG and what an opportunity that is for Canada. So with that backdrop, Professor Ian Lee, what do you think about where we're at right now with this Carney government on energy policy?
Unfortunately, both parties, and I'm going to be critical of both, are playing games with the future of our country. We just finished discussing the most radical foreign policy statement of the President of the United States since the Monroe Doctrine as it affects our country. Radical assertion of enhanced extraterritoriality by the United States over our country. And so both parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, are sitting around playing silly political games. They're literally fiddling while the country burns. No pun intended. So the Carney government is the government. I condemn them for this. They should say, look, everybody, this is a brave and brand new world we're facing. Our prosperity is literally at risk. We are going to go forward as an energy superpower. We are going to go forward with pipelines because it is the only way we can diversify away from that man with the orange hair in the White House in the United States of America. That's what pipelines means. It means, are we going to continue to be dependent on the President of the United States when we've already all agree in the polls he's no longer and they are no longer reliable? So this debate is nonsensical. If we really do believe we've got to diversify, that's the point.
Okay. The whole idea of this, the whole idea of this conservative motion is to get the Liberals on the record. Does this MOU mean a pipeline from Alberta to BC or not? To that point, what do you think?
I'm with you, Rob. I'm agreeing with you. They should just come out of the closet and quit shilly-shallying and screwing around and just say, look, everybody, yes, we signed an MOU with Alberta. Yes, we stand behind it. Yes, we're going to build pipelines to the West Coast because there is no other way we can diversify our economy. He should just come out and say that. That's called leadership. And he brags properly so. He's showing leadership. This is a time for the Prime Minister of Canada to really stand up and show leadership.
All right. Tomorrow's Bank of Canada Day, by the way, 30 seconds or less. Stand pat?
They're going to stand pat.
Hold steady?
They're not going to
stand pat?
Yeah, the economy is actually not doing that badly right now, and they've already done a couple of rate cuts. So I think that they're just going to stand pat. There won't be it won't go up or down tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. We'll speak next week, Professor. Yeah, bye-bye. Professor Ian Lee with us every Tuesday from the Sprott School of Business, Associate Professor of Management there at Carleton University. Our Newsday panel coming up next on a busy political day. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With our Tuesday Newsday political panel on a big day in the House of Commons, Jordan Paquet is with us. He's Vice President, Bluesky Strategy Group. How are you today, Jordan? Good to hear from you.
Great, Rob. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. Tom Parkin is with us, longtime political commentator. Hi, Tom. Welcome back.
Welcome. Nice to be here. Thanks, Rob. Nice to meet you, Jordan.
Yeah, let's get to it here. Let's go to the House of Commons right now, live, where MPs are debating this conservative motion on pipelines.
Columbia are not willing to stand up to their leader and for their constituents and for their province. That any party, that any member of parliament from British Columbia would support a motion that has an impact on their home province without mention of working with that province is shameful. Madam Speaker, as a British Columbian, I could not imagine a situation in which any other jurisdiction, let's talk about Alberta, if British Columbia were to say we'd like to do something involving Alberta and not talk to Alberta and expect the federal government to say yes. Or perhaps if we were to talk about building a pipeline or infrastructure through the province of Quebec or Ontario and not think about having British Columbia as part of the conversation. And yet that is exactly what these Conservatives are willing to do. They are willing to sacrifice British Columbia's priorities, and the very mention of British Columbia in order to advance division in this country, to drive people apart, and to seek to do things that are contrary to what Canadians...
That is BC Liberal MP Tlaib Noor Mohammed, best known as being a house flipper prior to his election to the House of Commons. But let's get into it today and what you think of this move from the Conservative Party. It's an obvious attempt to try and divide the Liberals on this push for a pipeline from Alberta to BC. It borrows from the language of the MOU. The Liberals have come out and said, we're going to vote against this. It's a cynical ploy. It's a stunt, all of this stuff. What do you think, Tom Parkin, about all of this?
Well, it does put the Liberals in an awkward position. We've already seen cabinet resignations over this issue, and there's obviously concern. Here's what I personally do not understand about this debate, Ron. We built at the cost of $35 billion a pipeline already, which we all publicly paid for. That goes to Burnaby. And it's not even running full yet. It's running around 80%, and it can be expanded. And in terms of any tanker ban, the tanker ban is on the North Pacific coast. It's not in Burnaby where that pipeline terminates. That pipeline could be British Columbia Premier has said, why don't we do that? I don't know why we are going about this the hard way. I understand that a northern route has a little bit shorter shipping route across the Pacific to China. But, when you already got something built that you paid a lot of money for, why not optimize that and lower the political temperature a bit? That's my thinking about this whole fiasco, in my opinion.
All right, Jordan, what do you think of what the Conservatives are doing to the Liberals here?
I think it was a very savvy move for the Conservatives to get into this. I mean, the Liberals were kind of sailing along mostly throughout the fall, got their budget passed, avoided an election, all of those things. And now they've kind of walked into this big MOU issue, which has exposed massive rifts in the Liberal movement and in caucus and in cabinet. So going into the holiday season, for the Conservatives to find that and use their opposition day right now to kind of drudge it up again and expose some of those rifts heading into the holiday season. The House is going to wrap up this week. Liberal MPs, well, all MPs are going to be going back to their ridings here at the end of the week, and they'll be on the Christmas party circuit, and they'll be holding constituency meetings, and they're going to be faced with a lot of these tough questions on some of these issues that are being brought up in this. Now, the Conservatives heard some of the complaints from the Liberals over the last day, and have amended the motion. So now we're at a kind of a point of time where Parliament is actually being forced to vote up and down on whether they support this MOU, and it's kind of humorous sometimes to watch how the Liberals are trying to squirm out of it and talking it to both sides. I think it actually just comes down to show that are they actually serious in getting a big project done, on getting a pipeline built, and I'm not sure they are.
Tom, I guess, if the ultimate goal from the Conservatives is to show that the Liberals are divided on this issue, the MOU and the possibility of another pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia, I mean, just how difficult is that to do for the Conservatives? To me, I'm just being a realist here. It looks like the Liberals are divided on this, and the Prime Minister is trying to keep everyone kind of rowing in the same direction. What do you think? They're clearly divided on this.
Well, they are clearly divided, and there's good reason for that, Rob. And I don't understand why everybody insists on going about this the hard way. We all understand. I mean, the Indigenous groups in that part of BC have real treaty constitutional rights with respect to some of the territories there, and they are not interested in this in approving this pipeline, and they are also partners in a whole bunch of projects, and this is David Eby's point, a whole bunch of economic projects in the area that he wants to go forward. So this isn't a no cost bargain. This is a deal that could cost jobs in BC. So setting up all this conflict, when we have a pipeline running only 80% full currently that we paid for $35 billion and could be expanded. The British Columbia Premier already says that that's okay with him. There is no tanker ban on Burnaby. Why are we going about this such a difficult and provocative way? I don't get it.
All right.
Why can't we have a conversation about just expanding the TMX, the existing pipeline?
Okay, well, I believe there are conversations about that, and then selling it to an Indigenous buyer, at least in part, an Indigenous buyer. We'll pick up on this when we come back. There's more to say about this when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. It's our Tuesday Newsday political panel. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Back with our Newsday political panelist, Jordan Paquet, Vice President of Bluesky Strategy Group, Tom Parkin, longtime political commentator, Tom Parkin. Let's go back to this motion that's before the House today. They'll be voting on it probably in another 4 or 5 hours or so. The Conservative Party trying to divide the Liberals on a push for a pipeline from Alberta to BC. Now, the Liberal line, Jordan, is that this is a stunt. This is a stunt, cynical politics from the Conservatives. But don't you think some people will be saying, depending on how this vote goes, well, what was the real stunt? Was the stunt the Prime Minister going to Calgary and signing an MOU with the Premier of Alberta? Maybe that was the stunt.
I agree with that sentiment for sure. And I think this goes to show what the Conservatives are doing here is saying, okay, you've gone out and said this. Now are you actually serious about it? Are you actually going to go and do the work and champion these projects to have it built? So they've just put forward now this amendment to try and cut through some of the talking points that the Liberals put out a bunch of cabinet ministers this morning to kind of shoot it down, saying, oh, no, it doesn't address this, and that. So now they've come out and said, okay, well, yeah, in the motion it says now engage with British Columbians immediately in trilateral discussions, provide meaningful opportunities for Indigenous right holders to participate in the consultation process and economic opportunities, and greenlighting the carbon capture technology. So looking at all this now, they basically picked all the language from the MOU and are now forcing just a straight up and down vote on it. And it's very interesting to see how the Liberals are reacting to this. I think in this particular sense, the Liberals have made quite a bit of a tactical error in this, in running perhaps a bit too fast and then tripping over their own feet. And now they're kind of scrambling with what to do and hoping to get through it into the holidays. But this isn't going away anytime soon.
Okay. Is that what you think, Tom? They're scrambling? This has caught them off guard, maybe? What do you think? The Liberals?
The Liberals don't have their feet solidly on they don't have their feet solidly placed anywhere on this issue because they are faced with the trouble of the fact that there is a tanker ban on the North Pacific coast. It has been there for, decades, and then became law about 10 years ago. But it had been de facto Canadian policy since the 70s, after, if you remember the Exxon Valdez spill from Alaska way back when. So, they've got that on one hand. They've got a premier in BC who's upset with them. They've got Indigenous groups who have constitutional rights that need to be accommodated, and they don't feel very accommodated. So, and there's jobs on the line either way. So it's either going to cost BC some jobs. So it's a bit of a mess. And again, Rob, I just keep coming back to this. We have a pipeline. We built it, $35 billion. It's running only 80% full. It can be expanded. It is not subject to a tanker ban. It runs to Burnaby. Why don't we expand that? The British Columbia Premier's already indicated.
And again, I would say, Tom, with all due respect, I believe the plan is to expand it and then sell it. That's the government's intention. But look, part of the opposition to this is because of the so-called climate wing, I guess I would call it, of the Liberal Party. Where do you think, Tom, climate change ranks as a concern for Canadians right now? Hasn't the dynamic shifted on that? What do you think?
I think we can clearly see that. other issues. I'm not so much sure that climate concern has fallen so much as other things have really increased. We have 1.5 million people unemployed in this country right now. We have a United States president who is attacking major industries of ours: auto, steel, aluminum, forestry, sawmills, that sort of thing. So it's just, I think, more an issue of there are other very, very important issues right now. And so the challenge, I think, is for all of our governments is to try and get focused on jobs. And I'm not seeing, to be honest, that we're having a lot of success on that. We saw Mr. Carney last Friday when the StatsCan November job numbers came out. He celebrated them because there were more jobs. But, if you peek just a little bit under the jobs report, it actually showed that there were over 9,000 full-time jobs less in November, and all of the employment gains were made because of part-time work. And not only that, it was something like 26,000 people just abandoned the job market. So, like, a little less cheerleading from the Prime Minister and a little bit more focus on, not giving out billions of dollars so companies can then lay off thousands of workers. Like, better focus on working class issues, bread and butter stuff, I think is what all the leaders in Ottawa need to be doing.
Yeah, so Tom is kind of suggesting there, Jordan, is about a hierarchy of concerns. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I certainly think that the climate change concerns have taken a backseat to some other concerns. When many Canadians can't afford groceries, they're seeing the Christmas season coming up, wondering how they're going to buy presents for their kids, and numerous other things. They're not really thinking about, what's climate change going to look like 20 years from now. They're trying to think about, how do I get through week to week, day to day, and I think that's what's being reflected in some of these decisions now.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk. I mean, today's a big day in Ottawa, but it will pass, and then we'll look ahead to two political events in the new year: Poilievre's leadership review and the NDP leadership race. How do our panelists see each turning out? Not too early to talk about that, I don't think. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With Tom Parkin and Jordan Paquet, Tuesday Newsday political panel, let's look ahead to a pair of big political events on the calendar for 2026. Late January, Calgary, Pierre Poilievre's leadership review. What are you anticipating? Any issues for Mr. Poilievre in Calgary in late January, Jordan Paquet?
No, I think he'll come out of that with flying colors. If there's one thing that the current people in the Conservative Party do well, it's organize. I think there'll be tons of delegates there in support of Pierre Poilievre. And the one thing is heading into the Christmas season now, with some of the issues we were just talking about before the break of this MOU with Alberta, it's exposing some of the rifts in the Liberal caucus, which is something that the opposition always loves to do if they can knock the government off kilter for a bit. So I think the Conservatives will go into the Christmas season feeling a little emboldened with themselves, and I think that will lead into Pierre Poilievre doing quite well at the end of January.
Do you see any issues for Mr. Poilievre with the leadership review, Tom Parkin?
Don't think so. All the polling, I don't have the insight that Jordan does on party mechanics, but the polling I've seen shows that Conservatives want to stay. So I expect that's the verdict that will get delivered.
Okay. On the NDP leadership race, has a front runner emerged there, Tom? How do you see this right now, this leadership race?
It's interesting. There's 5, but I think there's really 3. There's Heather McPherson, Rob Ashton, and Abby Lewis. And I would say it's very difficult right now to say who amongst those 3 is in the lead. It's membership sign up right now, and that goes until February. So we won't know how many people are voting and how many memberships different campaigns submitted until then. But there are some interesting signs of strength going on. I see a lot of Rob Ashton support from places I just didn't see it coming from him. It was obvious that he was going to get support from the labor movement from the very get-go when he had the national director of the Steelworkers Union beside him as he announced, and he was going to have strong support in BC. But he came to Toronto and had the support of former Toronto Mayor David Miller and a couple of other MPPs, I'm told, are quite supportive here. And he's back to Toronto this week after having been here last week to do another tour through Toronto and down to Hamilton to do an event with a former MP and a former MPP and a senior representative for the Steelworkers Union. So there's a fair bit of momentum going on there, and I've seen a little bit as well from Heather McPherson in the last few days. She's shown some support in Saskatchewan New Democrats, which is always a kind of plays a pivotal role in the NDP, so I think the challenge for Abby Lewis is to make himself strong, to show that he can attract votes outside of the metropolitan downtowns, outside of downtown Vancouver, downtown Toronto. And this is where I think Ashton can show some strength in the more blue-collar areas that have been going PC, where working-class people have been going PC, and he can appeal to them and bring them back.
Well, really interesting analysis there, Tom. Thank you so much for your time today, Tom Parkin. And Jordan Paquet, always great to have you here as well. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Jordan Paquet, Vice President, Bluesky in Ottawa. Tom Parkin, longtime political commentator, NDP observer, Southern Ontario today. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic is defending and protecting Canada. Defending and protecting Canada. The Canadian government wants to create what's being called a supplemental reserve force. A supplemental reserve force, and it's been drafting a plan since the spring of this year. And the goal is to have 300,000 Canadians trained for national defense, disaster response, and emergency mobilization. This was all first reported in the Ottawa Citizen. The plan was originally going to rely only on public servants, but after it became public, the Department of National Defense, DND, backtracked on that idea, and now it is saying it will try to recruit people from the general public. And again, they're looking for 300,000 people. Now, DND thinks it can get some of those 300,000 people by recruiting former and retired members of the Canadian Armed Forces. But what if that's not enough? What if they still need tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Canadians to sign up to be part of this supplemental reserve force? As it stands right now, according to the reporting in the Ottawa Citizen, there is a supplemental reserve force, but it's only a little more than 4,000 members. There are plans to beef up the traditional reserves to 100,000 members. It's currently less than 23,000, but all told, they're looking for 400,000 people. People who would be on standby to defend and protect Canada in a time of emergency. Maybe that's a military threat from another country. Maybe it's a response to a natural disaster like a wildfire or a flood or an ice storm. Or maybe it's mobilizing people in case of something like a massive cyber attack that threatens critical infrastructure. Here's what we want to know today. Get feedback from you here on Talkback. Given these aggressive recruitment goals for a 300,000 member supplemental reserve force in this country, should it be strictly voluntary or should it be mandatory? A mandatory service. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. 1-833-668-2577. Voluntary or mandatory? When the plan was first leaked to the newspaper, this is what the military leadership had in mind for this supplemental reserve force. 5 days a year. 5 days a year for training. And the training would concentrate on very basic skills. This is how to handle a firearm. This is how to move in a military style way. Communication. This is how the military communicates. This is how to drive a truck, or this is how you fly a drone. 5 days a year. That would be the commitment, 5 days a year. And people would learn very basic but very important skills in a time of emergency. The military leadership told the newspaper the ultimate goal of the plan is to develop greater national resilience and expand the readiness of the reserve force for defense purposes and for times of crisis and natural disasters. And it said to try and figure out how to move ahead with such a plan, our government and our military leaders will consult with their counterparts in Finland, because Finland is seen as a leader in this sort of thing. That's interesting, because in Finland, nearly all men must sign up for military service. It's voluntary for women, but mandatory for men. And that kind of service can be as short as half a year to a full year. And the conscription age in Finland is from 18 years old all the way to 60 years old. And they're thinking of raising it to the age of 65. It's also notable that in Germany, the government there recently said that all men at the age of 18 will be sent a questionnaire asking them if they're interested and willing to join the military. And every 18-year-old man will be given a health assessment to determine if they're healthy enough for military service. And the government there is not ruling out making military service mandatory. Conscription. It's all voluntary right now. Here in this country, the goal, a supplemental reserve of 300,000 Canadians. What would be the best way to go about achieving those numbers? We want your feedback. We want your input. Do you keep it strictly voluntary? Would you support some kind of mandatory service in order to meet these goals? That's what we want to know today. Please share your opinion. Important topic, given everything that's going on in the world, everything that's been happening in this country, so often in times of crisis, like a natural disaster, for example. Our leaders are so quick to call in the army. And the military has been saying for years, we're stretched thin enough as it is, and we can't keep doing that. At the same time, you have so many other countries, some of them with mandatory military service, others trying to entice citizens to at least think about it as a way to serve their country and make their country better prepared. What should we do here? 300,000 people being trained in the very basics, training 5 days a year. Voluntary or mandatory? 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. And let's talk about this, protecting and defending Canada. Today on Talkback, I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Protecting and defending Canada, the government wants to build a supplemental reserve force of 300,000 members. These Canadians would be trained for 5 days a year in basic skills: how to shoot a gun, how to drive a truck, how to follow orders. The plan is for it to be entirely voluntary. Should it be entirely voluntary? Should it be mandatory? For Canadians of a certain age, say. 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on Talkback. Danny is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hi, Danny.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Danny. What's your opinion?
Well, I'm a proud Canadian, and I like to think that I would fight for this country if we were ever invaded. However, I ask my fellow Canadians, how can we have a government in place that wants to do a gun buyback from legal gun owners, while on the other hand, asking Canadians to volunteer to be trained to fight with guns? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that certainly came to mind for me when I think about the last 10 years of this government. It hasn't really been all that interested in, say, Canadians learning how to use a firearm, but rather making more and more firearms prohibited. Right? Yes,
and as a legal gun owner,
square that circle for me. Right? Square that circle for me. Yeah, sure.
As a legal gun owner, I
point.
basically haven't been able to shoot my guns for a few years now without belonging to a club. A lot of those shooting clubs have like 2-year-long wait list. And I just laugh, like the threat apparently is our American neighbors now, the Russians, things like that. How do Canadians think, what would be the front line? If we were invaded overnight, what do you think? The government's what do you think? Amazon's gonna deliver the guns to our house? So you're asking Canadians to fight, but meanwhile you want to disarm legal gun owners. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. But to the point, I mean, there is this goal of building a supplemental reserve force. So you would have the regular force, then the reserves, and then this would be you and me, Danny. We would be among the 300,000 that they're looking for, right?
Yeah, and
should it be?
I understand
they're hoping they can get volunteers to sign up and do this sort of thing 5 days a year, basic military training 5 days out of the year. But should it be voluntary?
Yeah.
Or say for an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old who's coming out of high school, should they have to sign up for 5 days a year? Mandatory. What do you think?
Well, I think it has to be voluntary at this point, because from everything I've read over the years, the Canadian forces are having their own recruitment issues. So if somebody's not going to do it and get paid for it, I think you're going to have a heck of a time trying to get individuals to volunteer for it.
Okay, fair points, Danny. Yep, thank you. You've got us off to a good start. Let's go to Kieran in Calgary. First-time caller. Kieran, thank you for calling us today. What's your opinion? Very good. Thank you.
Last caller basically said the same thing, except I'll expand on it a little bit. I'm also a legal gun owner in Canada who has not been able to shoot majority of my legally acquired firearms in quite a few years. Finland, I was reading about this last week, actually, has a program set up where if you are a reservist, you get a special permit and you can purchase firearms legally to have at home to train and for national defense. So it's an AK platform, which is completely illegal in Canada. You can also buy ARs there if you have this permit as a reservist. So if you're going to model Canada's reserve force after Finland, you have to go all the way. So they're going to have to do a complete 180 on their firearm ban. Actually goes further than what we had even before all the Trudeau regulations. So you can't have a reserve force modeled after Finland and not follow their actual model. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, that's very interesting. And again, you're very much in line with the previous caller. Why would we encourage people to learn how to handle a firearm? Because we want them to be part of a supplemental reserve force, and at the same time, and they're moving ahead with this. I mean, they're not backing down with this. Spend $740 million on this so-called gun buyback program. You see a disconnect there.
There's a disconnect for sure. And the biggest advantage to this reserve force that Finland has is once you are trained, you legally get the permit and you have it at home for the national defense. If you get the training 5 days a year, is not really training, but if you get the training and you know what you're doing and you're supposed to be able to have national defense capabilities, not having access to firearms to do so doesn't really help anything, does it?
Right. Okay. On it being this point. 5 days a year, on being 5 days a year, okay, voluntary or mandatory? Voluntary or mandatory?
As it is right now, I think you have to do voluntary. Down the road, as the political and world climate changes, might need to switch military.
Right.
But it really depends. I don't think you can have mandatory the way Canada's set up right now.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you for being a first-time caller, Kieran. And Danny, kind of on the same page as we start. If you want Canadians to join a supplementary reserve force, and part of their training would be how to handle a firearm, and why are you moving ahead with the $740 million gun buyback program? Yeah, it's a great point that they make. We'll be right back with more of your opinions on building a supplemental reserve force to protect and defend Canada. On Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Again, we're talking about the Canadian government's plans to build a supplemental reserve force of 300,000 members, and we are seeking your feedback on how the government should go about doing that. Let's go to Dale in Kitchener. Hi, Dale.
Hey there, Rob. How you doing?
Very good, Dale. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Well, I think you're going to get a lot of redundancy on your calls here because I'm a firearms owner myself, and when this story broke a few months ago, I was struck by the complete hypocrisy of the whole thing vis-a-vis this massive gun confiscation that we're going through. But be that as it may, to your core question, should it be voluntary or not? Well, yes, I think voluntary, but understand there's already 2.5 million licensed gun owners in this country. And to get your license, you have to already pass a competency test and a lifetime criminal and medical background check. And once you get your license, you have to go, each of us get a daily background check. So when you get your license or apply for your license or renew your license, there can simply be a box to check if you're within whatever age range they want. Check here if you'd like to also be on our voluntary force. And if so, your licensing fee is waived. I think you'd get 1 million volunteers right out of the gate. You don't need to find new people. We got the people already.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. So you're the third caller in a row who has outlined this, what you see as a disconnect in the public policy.
Well, right. We have 2.5 million vetted, background checked, and already trained gun owners. Yeah. And why are they taking our guns away from us? And then they want to find new people to give guns to. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, at least you teach them how to handle one. I'm not sure if, I don't know if they're going to get to take them home. Right?
Well, we already have 2.5 million people who are trained to handle them. Already.
I know.
So, I mean, we don't really need these
Yes.
But you need to have the guns in your home because if something happens, it's not like you're all going to drive to some depot somewhere and then get your gun, right? So, I mean, that's
right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Very good, Dale. That's 3 in a row on that particular angle to it. Michael in Cochrane. Thank you, Michael. You're on the air. What's your opinion, Michael?
Hi, Rob. I think the choice of the topic is absolutely impeccable and timely. I have some former military experience and as a reservist. In my opinion, the government should deeply apologize to the hunting and firearm enthusiast community and then seriously consider them and extend their arm with a big please and thank you to recruit them on a voluntarily basis strictly. We should go back to celebrating our firearm traditions, which are synonymous with the development of this continent. Something similar to what they do in Sweden and other Northern European countries. Among 2 million legal firearm owners, as the previous caller mentioned, we have at least half of it a healthy, capable adult, women and men alike, of which at least 1/3 would be of a younger demographics, highly savvy with a computer and technology, which can be turned into drone operators if you need to. The government will save themselves tons of time and money on training people without any military outdoor background and with situational awareness of a youth just enough to get the Starbucks in the downtown. So I think the angle, of course, is that firearm owners should be really approached on that topic with great respect, and consideration and deep apology from our government
really?
who's trying to undermine our traditions in firearm ownership.
Okay, thank you for your call. Keep those calls coming. A lot of interest in the topic today. I'm encouraged to see that. Building a supplemental reserve force for Canada. There's one now. It's a little more than 4,000 members, most of them retired members of the armed forces. I want to boost it to 300,000. How do they go about doing that? What are your ideas? Voluntary, mandatory? We can talk about it from any angle on Talkback.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the government's attempt to build a supplemental reserve force. 300,000 members is the goal. Canadians who would be trained for 5 days a year in basic skills. The plan is for it to be entirely voluntary. Should it be voluntary? Maybe. We've talked in the past this year about mandatory service for Canadians. It's a fairly popular idea in the country, especially for young Canadians. 1-833-668-2577 to have your say. Blaine in Rocky View, County, Alberta. Hi, Blaine.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
Very good, Blaine. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Well, just wanted to say I think the previous callers have summed it up pretty nicely as far as the firearms gun buyback program goes, so I won't touch on that. I honestly feel that mandatory service, like 5 days a year, is not that big of an issue for most people. I think the biggest problem we would have to get to that 300,000 number, it would have to be a mandatory service. As it stands right now, we've spent the last decade or more belittling and really kind of going after the military in a lot of ways, demonizing them. So there's no incentive. We've also had a huge erosion in national identity over that same time period. And mandatory service might be especially among younger Canadians, might be a really good way to start rebuilding that national identity.
Yes. 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 Very good point. Very good point. Give them something to rally around, something to feel united about, if you will.
Yeah, it's been too long. There's been so much division. We see it on a day-to-day basis. And to at least have that some bit of common ground for everybody to get together for once a year or 5 days a year. It's just not an arduous service, but get people back on board.
Yeah. Give people common cause, right? Common cause is what comes to mind for me.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Tasha Carleton, who's been on this show a few times, the National Post columnist, wrote about this earlier this year. She was talking about a mandatory service, thought it would be good for young people. She wrote, quote, "It is time that we actively revive our sense of patriotism and national pride, that we honor the values that make us great, that have drawn millions of people to our shores, and it is urgent on so many fronts. The world is one. Our allies are under attack from Eastern Europe to the Middle East to the Asia Pacific. We are deluding ourselves if we don't think that somewhere down the line we are going to have to fight for our country too." She continued, quote, "Maybe if young people got a taste of what it is to serve their country, they would feel as though they want to defend it. Maybe if they volunteered in the armed forces or in charities and public service, they would want to build our country instead of tearing it down. But it's up to us to take the lead and make that happen." That was Tasha Carleton earlier this year in the Post. But that's one particular angle to it. Let's go to, where are we going next? Kitchener? Sean in Kitchener? Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Hi, Sean. Yeah, good to hear from you.
Good afternoon. I was actually thinking, I just came back from a military forum in Ottawa called Simver, and we had some major players there. We had SF Malcolm, who is the Attorney General. We also had the Honorable Jill McKnight, who is the Minister of Veteran Affairs Canada. And we had a long discussion, or many long discussions, as well as some PhD doctors who did some clustered research regarding military life and the transition from military life into civilian life. And we had a lot of great feedback in regards to these issues. What I was thinking is potentially we could use people that have committed criminal offenses. We have a lot of criminalizing of social problems and criminalizing of addictions issues, and our jails are overcrowded. And a lot of these overcrowding issues are in provincial detention, so a lot of these offenders have not even actually been sentenced, and they are innocent until proven guilty. So what I would propose is to potentially start writing procedures and to vet certain individuals, because if we're trying to reach those numbers, potentially people could get a taste for the Canadian Armed Forces and really want to build themselves and build families in our country, as we do have, individuals in our country that come from long, hard-working farming communities, and one or two of them falls into addiction or falls into social problems, and now they're labeled for the rest of their lives. So what I would propose is to have a proper vetting and potentially use people that have committed criminal offenses to become part of the CAF.
Okay. You must mean minor criminal offenses, right?
Well, yes. I mean, in regards
like
to
low-level criminal offenses. Okay, because I can't say I have a great deal of knowledge with this, but I would assume if you have a criminal record, you would be ineligible for any kind of military service. Am I right there?
Absolutely. Even if you smoke marijuana, you're probably not even going to be looked at.
Right. Okay. So you would think if we have any hope of hitting, say, this number 300,000 as a supplemental reserve force, we may have to look at people who have these low-level criminal offenses, possession of drugs, maybe even a history of addiction or what have you, and then run-ins with the criminal justice system.
With one stone here as well.
Okay, yeah, because it might give them some direction in life. Is that what you think?
Absolutely.
Some structure.
I could see it properly. Yeah, absolutely. Structure, properly vetted individuals. Potentially could, fight for a country, and maybe they'll find themselves along the way.
Right. Okay. And they're talking about this in certain military circles, sir? Is that what you're saying?
No, right now, as far as military circles go, even if you've been known to smoke marijuana, potentially you won't even be looked at by recruiters. It's very pristine, strict, and structured at the military right now. And what I'm proposing is to relax some of that structure as far as people that have committed criminal offenses, whether they're monitored more closely or there's other procedures in place. I think it's something that should at least be looked at.
All right, sir. Thank you for your opinion. It's out there and up for discussion, as is everything else that goes along with this topic today: how to build a reserve force of 300,000 members, a supplemental reserve, they're calling it. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The government wants to build a supplemental reserve force. 300,000 members, Canadians who would be trained 5 days a year is the plan in very basic military skills. This is how you shoot a gun. This is how you drive a truck. This is how you follow orders. It would all be entirely voluntary. What do you think of this plan from the government? How should it go about building this reserve force? What about it being voluntary? What about making it mandatory for Canadians of a certain age to learn these skills? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. I believe we have Bill up next. Bill's on the line from Alberta. Hi, Bill. Hi, Bill.
Is it Bill?
Yes, sir. You're on the line.
Is it Phil?
Phil? Yeah, go ahead, Phil. Sure.
Okay. I agree with all the past callers, especially on the guns. I don't trust the federal government. I haven't for years now. I believe each province should have a militia, a voluntary militia, and from 16 to 24, they should be conscripted like for 6 months, not 5 days. I was in the military. And
okay.
5 days, like even in the reserves, you go in there, you can spend a year. But I believe each province should have their own militia. I agree with that, where they can combine if there's national emergencies. But they can also say no, because with the truckers, what happened with the truckers, where they called in the military there, that shouldn't be allowed. And if you let the provinces take care of it, provinces will say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but shouldn't the national defense of the country be left up to the federal government? Don't you think that's a federal government responsibility?
Country.
Right.
I
yes.
agree that the national defense of the country should be federal. But
yes.
It's the internal that scares me about a party like that the government can say, okay, Alberta's going for independence, let's go in there and stop them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I know what you mean, but it sounds as though you would prefer to have, say, an Alberta militia because you distrust the federal government.
I'd like to. No, I agree with a militia of some sort across Canada, but each province should have their own. Controlled by the federal if it's a national emergency.
Right. Okay. I don't know if that's feasible or not, Phil, but I appreciate your opinion, sir. But it sounds a lot of it is born out of you don't trust the federal government based on what happened with, for example, the Freedom Convoy. Fair enough, Phil. Aurora up next in Calgary today. Aurora.
Hi there, Rob.
Hi there. Good to hear from you.
Hi. So I think that we should actually have a mandatory year of military conscription. I think if we just did it where everybody had to join, that it would be better for everyone. I know it can be scary, especially if you don't agree with everything that the federal government is. I think it just takes a huge weight off. It was just mandatory. 1 year, and then from there people can decide to continue with the military or they cannot.
Okay. And how did you come to that line of thinking? How did you come to believe it that a year of military service, which they do in a lot of countries, even a lot of our peer countries are doing that, or even thinking about it now? Why do you think that would be a good idea?
I think it's better to just make it everybody across the board, because if you have like a supplemental volunteer kind of volunteer conscription, the problem is that it's voluntary until it's not, and then they need you, right? So why not just make it mandatory all across the board? Everybody does a year, and then it's done, and then you can choose to continue on with it or not.
Right. Okay. And why do you think that would be good for the country?
Well, again, as many people have said, like it might be good for the youth too, to get out there and try something new, feel that nationality. But yeah, I think it would be better if we just had everybody do it, and then it's
be good for nationalism, be good for patriotism, be good for belief in the country. I've called it common cause today. You think you see benefits there?
Yes, I definitely do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your call. More of your calls just ahead. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So there is a supplemental reserve force already in Canada. Not great in number, about 4,000 or so, 4,300. The government, along with the military leadership, want to boost that to 300,000 Canadians who will be trained for 5 days a year to respond to a military issue or a natural disaster or an emergency mobilization. How should it go about it? Should it be voluntary? Should it be mandatory, for example? 1-833-668-2577. Peter is in Halifax today. Hi, Peter.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good, Peter. What's your opinion?
First-time caller, first-time listener. So this is quite an eye-opener getting everybody's opinion from across Canada on something. But I'm former military, militia. And I think what's happening maybe is people are conflating taking guns away from the average citizen and then asking military to carry guns. I think there's a difference there, right? Like, I don't own a gun, but I know how to operate one because I was in the military. I would assume that that's what they're talking about. They're going to train you with their guns. They don't expect you to buy a 45, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But and I wouldn't be opposed to a mandatory thing for 2 years. I don't think it's hurting anybody. Like I said, I did it. I think it's a good idea, especially considering the way the world's changing. If we need people, who are the people that don't want to do it going to depend on? We certainly can't depend
fair
on the
point.
South,
right. Okay.
They're not there anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's embarrassing the way that this is going, but I don't see this as the same thing as taking personal guns away or keeping people from having automatic weapons. I think that's conflating the issue. I don't think that's the same thing at all. But
well, I mean, not automatic weapons.
Idea.
I mean, automatic weapons have been prohibited in Canada, sir, since the mid 1970s. What they're, I think the people who are, linking, say, for example, the plans for a $740 million gun buyback program by the federal government see a disconnect in the public policy if at the same time the Department of National Defense wants 300,000 Canadians to be trained in, among other things, how to use a firearm when there are millions of Canadians who have firearms and the government doesn't want to let them use them. And in fact,
the same thing. The government doesn't want a private militia like runs around in the southern states in the United States. They don't want that. That's not what they're asking for. They want trained military people. And if that's 5 days a year, and it won't be expected that everybody uses a gun. There's more to being in the military than being able to shoot a gun, right?
Sure.
They'll need everybody. Yeah, they'll need everything.
Yeah, they'll need mechanics. They'll need people who are experts in IT. They'll need cooks in kitchens. Everything like that. Sure.
Everything. It's to imagine that I don't see these two things as the same thing or conflicting with each other at all.
Okay.
I just don't know I don't know how anybody makes that connection. That's two different things as far as I'm concerned.
And you know what? There will be people who will call and they will say, what is going on with that Peter guy in Halifax that he doesn't see the connection? So I know you're a first-time listener and a first-time caller.
Yeah.
Welcome to Purgatory, sir. Thank you for calling and being part of the debate. Okay. We'll wrap up hour number 1 there of Talkback and continue it into the second hour. If you're on the line, I hope you'll hang on. We'll bring you right up to date on the latest breaking news. And then more on this plan to build a supplementary reserve force of 300,000. How do we go about doing that in this country? This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Our topic is protecting and defending Canada, with the government hoping to build a supplemental reserve force. So think regular force, reserve force, and then this supplemental reserve force, totaling 300,000 members many years from now. But that's the recruitment goal, 300,000 Canadians who will be trained 5 days a year. Basic skills: this is how you use a firearm, drive a truck, operate a drone, certainly follow the chain of command. It would be entirely voluntary. What do you think of that? Maybe we've talked about this earlier in the year, mandatory service of a certain age for people to learn these skills. 18 seems to be a popular age in other countries. We talked about this a little bit in the late winter, early spring. At that time, the mood of the nation was very much elbows up. Donald Trump kept talking about wanting to make Canada the 51st state, and there was serious renewed interest in the defense and protection of the country. But it is interesting because there is a trend that seems to be in place internationally. This was an election issue in the most recent UK election, which was won by the Labour Party, but the UK Tories, the Conservative Party, floated this idea, some sort of mandatory national service, but in that case, it wasn't just military service. It could have been military service, but it could have been community service, doing good works in the community. In the Canadian context, if you think back to earlier this year, it sparked interest in some Canadians who were thinking about, well, how do we train the civilian population in basic military operations? Here's how you follow orders. This is how you work as a team. This is basic first aid. These are basic survival skills. And yes, this is how you handle a firearm. There were people on social media, threads on Twitter, threads on Reddit, saying, Canadians should really learn how to do this stuff. The enemy is at the gate. Was sort of the feeling at the time. And even if the enemy wasn't at the gate, it would be a good idea if Canadians, on a rather large scale, learn these skills anyway. Of course, Mark Carney led the Liberals to victory in the April election. One of the first things he announced as prime minister was his plan to dramatically increase spending in the military. His plan is to accelerate the timeline to meet the NATO target of 2% of GDP and eventually hit 5% of GDP spent on the military. Now, some of that comes in the form of pay raises for new recruits and current members of the forces. Other parts of it will come from the purchase of new equipment, ships, fighter jets, submarines. And now, also, it would seem some of that increased spending might go to an idea like this, bolstering the reserve force. And it was the Ottawa Citizen newspaper that got its hands on the plan from the top brass in the armed forces. 300,000 supplemental reserves. Supplemental reserves. What do you think about that idea? How could the country go about achieving that goal? Can it really be accomplished if it's voluntary? Would it have to be mandatory? If it's mandatory, would that be a good thing? Good for the country? Would you expect a lot of pushback to something like that? So many things to talk about. Corey in Olds, Alberta. Hello, Corey.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Corey.
Sorry, can you hear me?
You hear you just fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was just thinking, as an opinion, the federal government was going off about having about, 500,000 illegal immigrants. I'm thinking if they were, if you talk to them, instead of them getting deported, maybe they could be reinstated under that supplemental program.
Yeah, I suppose maybe that's one way to go about it. Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much what my thoughts were anyway.
All right, Corey. Well, thank you. Let's go to Adam up next in Calgary. Adam. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Rob. How you doing, man?
Very good, Adam. Thank you. What do you think?
Well, I'm speaking from a perspective of someone who served in the military. I served in Afghanistan. And I think, from an idealistic perspective, I think it would be fantastic to have mandatory service in the military, understanding that the military isn't all combat arms. Not everybody should be forced into the combat arms. And I think for a program like this, with a number like that to be successful, that mandatory service would be the only way to achieve it. I know with the Liberal government, they won't go that route because I think they would lose their voter base. Certainly, this would be painting with a broad brush, but the majority of people I'm aware of that vote for that party would not be the type to volunteer for the military. And
maybe not. But
when
if I could just interrupt there, because there was a poll done about this. Now it's one poll, but Mario Canseco's polling firm Research Co. asked about this. Would you support some form of mandatory service for Canadian young people, like 18 years old? And actually, more liberals supported it than conservatives, which was an interesting finding. Now, it's a poll about a year old now. I doubt much has changed, but just by political affiliation, I found that to be an interesting outcome. But maybe that was driven by the elbows up sentiment of the time as well, right? So
could be. I find that surprising, but I also have to recognize that that's a poll, that's talk, and that's not action. Two very different things.
Yeah. Sure.
However, in my opinion, too, the broad base of individuals that would be likely to volunteer, they're going to be heavily dented, I guess, for lack of a better term, by what you've been talking about all morning here with the gun buyback program. I know I was extremely proud of my service. But I would be very hesitant to give anything back to the government that is telling me I can't be trusted, to have these firearms that I've gone through my checks and proven myself to be reliable, and then turn around and ask the same group to say, hey, you're reliable and we want to use you for this. So I think with pushback and blowback from the gun buyback program, the only way that they would be able to get the numbers they need would be through a mandatory push, which I don't think they'll do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Some people do see a disconnect there. We've had, one caller so far who says that you shouldn't try to link one issue with the other. I have been saying I find it interesting that the Liberals have been in office for more than a decade now. It certainly hasn't expressed any interest up until recently in having Canadians learn anything about firearms or how to use one, and more interested in outlawing gun ownership. I guess circumstances have changed now. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On building a supplemental reserve force for Canada, 300,000 strong. That's our topic on Talkback today. Let's go to Edmonton. Paul is in Edmonton. Hi, Paul.
Yes, class act.
Yes,
Rob.
Paul.
But I'm just considering all the paramilitary forces, our police forces, are paramilitary in a way, as they could actually fill the void very quickly. Not only that, most of the municipal forces have units referred to as SWAT, and I believe these are basic where training could be done very readily. And also the fact is that be a clearance house for any applicants that wanted to join the supplementary force, because they have all the capabilities of checking out records of such people that want to apply.
Okay. But if all of that is available, then why would the government be seeking to, we're talking about a dramatic scaling up here. The supplemental reserve force as it stands right now, as I said, it's mostly former or retired Canadian Armed Forces members. It's only about 4,300 right now. They aim to get it to 300,000. The regular reserves, about 23 to 24,000 right now. They want to triple it to 100,000. They're looking for a total of 400,000 people.
Yeah.
Why do you think the government would be pursuing such things?
I would be saying that the police forces and our municipal forces across Canada could be our agents of recruiting as well. And that would supplement
agents of recruitment.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be all in-house sort of situation, and it'd be much easier to distribute that number that's required.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Paul in Edmonton to West in Calgary. West.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
Yeah, very good, West. Thanks for the call. What's your opinion?
Well, look, I served the military for 23 years with the Princess Pats, and I've been in all forums, from being posted in Germany, but never in warfare, lucky. But I did a lot of instructing over the years, small arms, machine guns, whatever. And this is what I have to say. I think the government is barking up the wrong tree here. What you really want to do is introduce military life, maybe, and basic training in high school, maybe grades 11 and 12.
Oh, really? Like make it part of the school curriculum?
Yeah, get rid of the war crap. And also, you're going to need to up the pay raises for the reserves, make it easier for people to get in if they want.
Right. Okay. So instead of going to shop class or gym class, I'm going to military class?
Yep.
Really?
Mandatory.
And what kind of things would I learn? What kind of things would I learn there?
Well, they learn just basic military doctrine, safety precautions, all that stuff. 90% of whatever you learn in the military, 90% of it's classroom work, believe it or not.
Okay. Well, that's
and then
very
they have the
interesting.
option of joining the reserves if they want to follow up.
Right. Okay. Well, that's not what's being envisioned here. I mean, here I come back to the Supplemental Reserve Force, 300,000 members, Canadians trained only 5 days a year. What can you learn in 5 days? I don't know. They say they're going to teach you how to handle a firearm, drive a truck, learn about the chain of command, those sorts of things.
Yeah, they're not going to learn anything. It's just going to be a gaggle.
A gaggle. Okay.
Absolutely. That's a waste of money. So you better to put it in. And I bet you the military could put a course together and didn't even get some old retirees to act as substitute teachers. We're all trained on and teaching techniques and stuff like that anyway.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you. All right. Thank you. West out in Calgary today. Why don't we stop here and then more of your calls? Just hang on the line. We'll get right to you. Canadian government plans to build a supplemental reserve. The goal, 300,000 members. What do you think of that plan? How should it go about trying to meet that goal? 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Again, the Canadian government hopes to build a supplemental reserve force of 300,000 members, strictly voluntary. One of the questions we've been asking is, can you meet that goal of 300,000 if it's voluntary to be a member of the supplemental reserve? Would it have to be mandatory through some kind of mandatory service program that is popular in other countries? Well, popular may not be the wrong word, but mandatory would be the right word. Who's up next here on Talkback today? Jimmy in Two Hills, Alberta. Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi there, Rob. I like your show. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. What's your opinion today, Jimmy?
No problem. So I've been listening to your show a lot, and I just want to bring a question to you, a deep question. It's just when I listen to a lot of the callers, I just feel like really scared about the future, and I kind of wonder. It kind of goes back to the whole question about this 300,000 reserve forces. Why are Canadians so unserious like as a country? You know what I mean?
Okay, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, the last 10 years we've been under the same liberal government. They've never cared about the military before, and now they're at when you were saying how they want to take away firearms from law-abiding citizens, but then they don't trust us to have guns, but then they want to make a reserve force. It really just comes back to the question, Rob. I just don't understand. The Canadian, we have a military, and it's not exactly a intimidating force. I mean, what does the Canadian soldier bring to the battlefield? I mean, are they going to run around and try to kiss the enemy? Like, I'm just kind of curious about that.
Well, I mean, it's been left to, and look, let's not malign the people who are wearing the uniform and going and going all over the world, to places like Latvia, for example, where they are right now, our largest foreign deployment, right? So close to what could be a really hot zone. So let's not do that. But the military has been left to, I would say, atrophy. It hasn't been properly supplied. These people haven't been properly compensated. Their housing is dilapidated. All of this has to be improved. Now, the current prime minister seems to be taking it in a different direction, says we're going to spend big on the military, meet the 2% defense target, and eventually spend 5% of the country's GDP on the armed forces through pay raises and better equipment and through something like this.
I just feel like nobody takes them seriously, though, right? Like, the whole world doesn't take our country seriously anymore, unfortunately. It's painful to say, but I think most Canadians are pretty embarrassed to be a Canadian. Like, we don't have a real military. We don't have real borders. We're hardly a real country. It's really unfortunate, Rob. And I don't mean to malign the armed forces members, but I mean, like you just take, for example, what the RCMP did to our own citizens. I mean, trampled a bunch of elderly people at the Freedom Convoy, and it's just really sad. I mean, this country's essentially betrayed generations of people. Like, we really have no future anymore.
Okay. Well, you're pretty down on the country. You're pretty down on the direction of the country there, Jimmy.
It's true. It's true, Rob.
Right?
I mean,
yeah.
I wish I could feel hopeful, but I mean, Carney is like the biggest clown I've ever seen in my life. I'm sorry to say.
Really?
But,
are you not happy that he would spend more on the military? Give them pay raises, give them better equipment, try to build a reserve force. But you don't have confidence that they're going to follow through on it. Okay, fair enough, Jimmy. Fair enough. You're kind of a Jimmy Downer today, though, I have to say. We'll be back right after the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about protecting and defending Canada and the government's plans to build a supplemental reserve. 300,000 members be trained to help in emergency mobilization, natural disasters, and yes, defense of the country. The plan would be they train for 5 days a year, learn basic military skills, how to handle a firearm, drive a truck, follow orders, entirely voluntary. Now, it's interesting. All of this came to light because documents were leaked to the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. The Ottawa Citizen has a great journalist that only covers national defense issues, David Pugliese. Impeccable sources. I don't know how he gets some of the stuff he gets his hands on, but he got his hands on this, and he says our government officials and our military officials are going to consult with Finland, where this is really just a fact of life. Finland has conscription for men. Women can volunteer. Service lasts 6 to 12 months. And that's a country of 5 million people. It has 900,000 of its citizens trained in civil defense. Well, the goal here, I suppose you could look at it a little more modest, but it's certainly a big change. It's certainly a big change. And, we're going to have our officials in Ottawa asking their Finnish counterparts, hey, how did you do that? How did you do that? 1-833-668-2577. Manjeet up next in Calgary. Hi, Manjeet.
Hello, Rob. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, sir.
Good,
yeah.
Good.
How are you?
I'm a regular listener to you, but I called courage to call today first time.
Well, thank you so much for doing that, Manjeet. What's your opinion?
I've been listening to a few callers since I left home on my way to my office. And I agree with few of them that, yes, we should start this from grade 10, and they should be, trained to what's happening, giving full knowledge what's happening in Army, what's happening in Navy, what's happening in Air Force, all three, government jobs. They have a lot of kids I see, they drop off after 18, right? They don't go to college. They are sick and tired of studies. Maybe they find their way this way.
Okay.
And guess what? Guess what? In next 30 years, we will have everybody trained for Army. All the young starts from grade 10. And Army, Navy, Air Force, everything is discipline. And they will never talk against their parents. They will never misbehave in public. And they will have lots of respect for Army veterans and Navy veterans, everybody, Air Force, Guess what? If we have trained pilots from Air Force, we can be never short in the airlines.
True enough. But also, just building on your idea, what about, would it not help with pride in the country and nationalism, national pride? Do you think
this is a great idea?
Yeah.
They will be automatically, into the country, and they will see the government, they will see these institutions, training and discipline and everything, and there will be not many kids playing games on their TVs, right? They will be going to actually learn how the life is of an Army people.
Okay, Manjeet, very, very interesting. Thank you for calling today for the first time and for listening quite often. I appreciate that. Let's go to Brampton, Ontario. Paul is up next. Hi, Paul.
Yes, hi there. First-time caller as well.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I think we want to take a look at the playbook down south there, because they're exceeding all their military recruitment goals or whatever they're doing. There's a huge resurgence in pride, and I guess, and people joining the military. I think they've almost doubled their recruiting goals down south. Okay, and
I didn't know that.
It's been it's been widely in the news there. So the interesting thing is, one of your callers said, what's happening here with Carney and the 2% and the 5%, and really what's really happening is he has no choice, because Trump's dictated that all NATO is supposed to do their 2%, which we have not. And apparently now NATO's agreed to go up to 5%. So this should not come as a surprise to anybody that we're going to spend that much more money on the military, because we've been pretty much forced to do so, or even shamed to do so in some respects, I guess. So I think, we want to take a look at the playbook, what's happening in the U.S., and find out how are they meeting their recruiting goals, because they basically doubled their goals already. I think they hit the goal for 2025 in April of this year for recruitment.
Wow. Okay. I did see a story, and I meant to mention this. It was out a few days ago that the forces in Canada says it's seeing a surge of recruits graduating from basic training at the school that it runs in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu in Quebec, like almost 8,000, which they say is the most in our post-Cold War history. They've never had that many before. So there seems to be an increasing interest in it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've lost him, and we should stop here anyway. We're a little tight on time. But Paul, thank you for your call today in Brampton. Be right back with more of your calls on a busy Talkback today. Lots of interest in the topic today. Building a supplemental reserve force, okay? The regular forces, the reserves, and this massive supplemental reserve force of 300,000 members. How do you go about doing something like that? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Listowel, Ontario. Bernie's up next on building this supplemental reserve force of 300,000. Hi, Bernie.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Bernie.
Can you hear me okay?
Hear you just fine.
Can you hear me okay, Rob? My phone is a little bit sketchy.
Well, you're coming in loud and clear, Bernie. So what's your opinion?
Okay, so the word nationalism just came up. Nationalism, when we're talking about the United States, is an awful, sinister thing, apparently. Why would nationalism be a word that we bring up in this context here? That's, to me, a little strange.
Okay. Maybe I misspoke because I did use that word nationalism. Maybe patriotism. Is that okay? Is that a better word?
Yeah, that's a better word. But here's something that I would just want Canadians to think about.
Okay.
This 300,000 person force or whatever it is will not
supplemental
have
reserve.
Right. They won't have enough training to actually fight against a real military. If that's true, they're all trained in the use of firearms, but they can't actually fight in a real military conflict.
Okay.
Who actually are they going to use those skills against? That's the question I want to ask.
Well, again, it's not just about, say, fighting in a foreign conflict, although that's part of it, but it's also, okay, so there's, a wildfire in Northern Ontario or a flood, along the Bow River, whatever. There's, some incredible natural disaster. We need to airlift 9,000 people out of a community in northern Manitoba because of a fire or something like that. There could be a role for this as well.
Excellent. Right? All of those things are very good, and I approve of that. I'm just a little leery of 300,000 people trained in the use of firearms, but not actually capable of fighting in a military conflict. And that's just a thought I wanted to express.
All right, Bernie, and you have. Thank you so much. Let's go to Slabco in Toronto today. Slabco.
Hi, Rob. First-time caller.
Appreciate that.
I just want to preface my comment, please, if you don't mind. A couple of callers ago mentioned that the U.S. numbers for recruitment are up. That's bogus. I work in a peripheral field to the military, and the U.S. numbers for 22, 23 have been exceedingly low. Have improved marginally. It's very important for my point, so please bear with me here. In 24, 25, they're up very marginally. Part of the big crust of the problem is drug use, obesity, and other health issues, changing societal views within the United States. Numbers are significantly down. Our numbers aren't much better. Now, to my comment here, we're going to spend money on improving the morale of our country, whatever word we want to use, nationalism or any other word. I don't see that coming the way it's being described. I see it as a way of spending money to develop I'm not even sure. It's not a fighting force because you won't develop any skill set for 5 days a year from a bunch of people who are there to be weekend warriors. If we want to prepare them for a natural disaster or something similar, as you just alluded to, then why not give them medical training? Why not give them rescue training? Not military skill sets, which will never be utilized in a combat perspective because they simply can't develop it. So I come to my question. Why are we really spending the money on training these people? What use will they really be? Or is there a political reason why they're being trained? And
Okay. Then let me ask you, if you think that there's a political reason that they might be in the process of designing such a force, what would that political reason be? Because I've thought about that too.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. We have a government in power that has not been a supporter of the military. As a general rule, the Conservatives are much stronger supporters of the military. So now we get a new government in power, and they're looking to get votes. Very similar to the entire gun ban and firearms prohibition on long guns and handguns. I believe, in my view of things, that this is geared towards gaining more support for the Liberal Party itself, because there is almost zero practical use for 300 people training 5 days a year in military skill sets. And this is from a perspective of being involved in that area of work for 30 years now.
Okay.
Just a view.
A vote-getting exercise. You think it's a vote-getting exercise? Who would be won over by such a thing, though?
Well, I think all those people who are sitting on the margin, not sure if they're going to vote Liberal or Conservative or other parties, not to discriminate against anybody, but I think pushing a little bit towards these 300,000 people. If anybody in these 300,000 is not a Liberal, I would think that that gives them 5 days a year plus the other days where everybody is talking and drinking coffee together to build a cohesive, I don't know, subunit maybe is the correct term. You can't help. Look, Rob, if we send our children 5 days a year to a law enforcement academy, they're going to hopefully become pro-law enforcement and will learn the ups and downs of law enforcement.
Right.
If we send them 5 days a year to a medical institution, to a hospital or something, hopefully they're going to develop skill sets that are favorable and understandable to the problems we have within the medical community. This applies to every job sector. If you send 300,000 people to your work setting 5 days a year, I believe that they're going to become favorable because they're hearing the verbiage and the problems from your perspective. This applies very strongly to the military.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay, thank you. Have to wrap up our conversation there, however. Well, high demand topic today. Very interesting. We'll be right back with more of your calls on Talkback.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On protecting and defending Canada with a supplemental reserve force of 300,000 members. Current supplemental reserve force, about 4,300. The goal, 300,000. More opinions. Let's go to Stan in rural Alberta. Hello, Stan.
Hi there, Rob.
Hi, Stan.
My opinion, the Liberal Party can't be trusted in regards to administrating an army. They've been mismanaging the RCMP over the last 8-10 years and different things that have taken place. And I feel they would do the same thing with those 300 conscripted people. And if we were relying on them, then we'd be relying on their woke ideology that they've brought out of the World Economic Forum. And that's just actually taking people out of the urban areas and putting them in the cities and controlling them and lowering population. And so I don't trust the federal government. I'm like that bill that was on a while ago. I think it should be a provincial thing, if at all. And I feel
Yeah, I get it. You're in rural Alberta, and maybe there's some. You don't trust the federal government, right?
I sure don't, because they are world economic.
Now, just let me ask you, Stan, just so I can nail you. Do you support the independence of Alberta?
I sure do. I think that's the only way we can actually get any change for Alberta.
Gotcha.
We're sending all our money down east and hoping to.
So you would prefer something like an Alberta? You would like an Alberta? Would you like an Alberta provincial police force?
You bet. Yeah, for sure.
And like an Alberta militia, right?
That's right. Then we can
gotcha. All right.
And look at locally rather than.
Yeah, fair enough, Stan. I just want to fit in one more. Southern Alberta, Linda. Hi, Linda. Linda's probably going to be the last call. Yeah. Hi, Linda.
Hi. Yes.
Hi, Linda.
I don't know why they don't recognize the cadet programs that are out there.
The what programs? Sorry, Linda?
Well, there's military cadet programs out there. And when my brothers were growing up, they went in to see cadets.
I was in one as a child.
And so then they have the opportunity to go forward Like, I mean, they spent time on the ships and stuff. So I would like to see programs like that instituted in the schools, and the kids get credit for attending. And then if they can advance their scholarships and stuff for them to go, as opposed to the way they do it now.
All right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. I'm glad, I think we may have left a couple of people on the line. We just couldn't get to everybody today. Demand was so high for opinions, and I really appreciate that. Brand new topic tomorrow. More of your calls. And always the latest breaking news. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.